G'day, everybody listening in on the podcast. Today's episode, we're going to talk about arm wrestling and the balance between strength and skill. It's a fierce debate, that one, isn't it, Ethan? Much like my ability to count.
Yeah, much like his ability to count. We were doing our sound test just to give some context to my life.
Here we go. Tell the story. Come on.
Ryan goes 1, 2, 3 is his sound test. I do mine. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Ryan, you've always got to do just one more, don't you?
It's terrible.
It's concerning.
Terrible.
It's concerning.
Anyway. My goodness, mate. Ethan and his bloody maths degrees.
I wouldn't go that far. Yes. There'll be people in the comments who can actually do maths.
Oh, watch out. Anyway, muscles installing. Please wait. Does that mean you're in the camp of strength is more important than technique?
Ooh, almost. Okay, I'll start saying I see arm wrestling as a combat sport. I really, really do.
When you say, I'm going to pull you up straight away. Because I've seen this, maybe combat's not the right word because it's not. We're not. It's not. It's not in a. Is it a fight? Like combat. If you look at the word combat, it is like it's a fight. Like it's with intent to hurt, with intent to kill, with intent to.
Okay, no intent to hurt, no intent to kill, but intent to derail, intent to
physically dominate someone.
Yeah, physically
against their will.
Yep.
Okay, so what's the right word? Is combat the right word? I don't think it is.
You don't think it is?
It's, and then I've heard people like Devon say, "Oh, it's a miniature mixed martial art," and then the martial artists get up there and say, "No, it's not a martial art because a martial art still has intent to."
Or the ability to, or whatnot.
The ability, yeah. Well, I guess we can break someone's arm, but it's not. That's never the intent or the goal.
No, and it's incredibly difficult to do so as well. And it's all about getting a pin. It's not about really. Well, that's submitting your opponent.
Submitting.
That's a form of submission. Kind of like
definitely
wrestling.
Submissions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, wrestling. It's arm wrestling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Look at that. We came back to the term wrestling. Imagine that.
We did.
So
it's almost as if it's in the title.
It's almost as if there was a clue right in front of us somewhere.
Oh, just showing how intelligent we are. Can't see what's right in front of us.
But anyway, it is one of those sports that you see this debate come up every 3 to 6 months, and it's often when a new guy's involved in the sport who's really passionate. He puts it in the forums. He wants to know because he's feeling a certain way within his own progression. And from my experience, and I was one of those guys, it usually starts with new guys saying technique is more important than strength because, I don't know, they're not that strong and they're beating guys that are clearly stronger than them because they've learned how to do a top roll now and they've learned how to position their hand where the guys are against, they don't know. But they're usually jumped on pretty quick by the guys that are more experienced in the sport saying, no, you big fool, you need to be strong. And I have been through all these full evolutions and I'm curious as to where you are in that evolution.
Yeah, well, there's the classic argument from people who like to fence it, right? Where you say you've got two people the same strength, the one who is more technical will win. Mm-hmm. We even saw recently, we saw Irakli versus Ongabayev. And I think for all time, that's going to be a great match to look back to and see just how incredible technique can be in a match.
Oh, man, I would hire Ongabayev as a technical coach. If somebody asked me that the other day, said, if you could pick anyone as a technical coach, who would it be? There's my man.
Oh, yeah.
He is a killer, isn't he?
Absolute killer. So you see the difference that technique can make. But then there's the other camp, is that you've got two people who are just as technical, right? The stronger person's going to win every time. So so you've got that. And
Can two people be just as technical as each other? To me, there's always someone leading the dance. I don't think there's an equilibrium even really possible.
There can be two people just as technical as each other, but someone is always going to be leading the dance. And whether or not someone reacts well or someone initiates well is probably the question.
So it's a bit of a chicken or the egg scenario, isn't it, here? Because as you say, you can say it either way. Two guys the same strength, the better guy will win. Two guys with the same skill level, the stronger guy will win. So then, if we then say, okay, both of those statements are true, which I think we can agree on.
Yep.
Which, therefore, is easier to apply? Which, therefore, is easier to accumulate, strength or technique?
See, funnily enough, I think you might agree with me on this one. Technique for us has been pretty easy to accumulate. That has come quicker for us than strength has. But for Lachlan, strength came a lot quicker for him, and he's still figuring out technique. So that comes down to the athlete as well. I'm gonna say that technique has been easier to accumulate. Still in the process of installing muscles.
Well, I'm clearly massive.
You're actually less massive than me right now, Ryan.
Yeah, you're heavier than me yesterday, and you deadlifted more than me yesterday too. Gee whiz. Congratulations, Ethan. I got to say, you went past, like, without a doubt, on your first lift in the gym. You've now left me behind on the movement.
Feels good. Feels good.
Yeah, no, I'm
I'm
genuinely.
working on catching up the other ones.
I'm
too.
genuinely impressed. He's out deadlifting me easy now. It's not. I can't keep up. But anyway, well done. But installing muscles, please wait. Yeah, genetic start points do dictate this path. I've often gone as far as saying that I think that it's an advantage to start weak in this sport because I think that it's easier to get strong later than it is to get good technique later. If you come in like someone like Larry Wheels, someone like Lachlan Adair, as you mentioned, a lot of people come into the sport with what I describe as the curse of strength. And they use, therefore, very broad, basic shapes to win. And when they hit the wall or the limitations are found in their opponents, they just try to be stronger and they go away and just train those basic strengths more.
And when you start on the other side and you start weaker, then everybody that you come up against is stronger than you, and you have to learn to beat people.
And you
stronger
start
than you.
to start to say, how can I?
Yeah.
Like how could have I applied what I've got more effectively?
The question is, if you can beat people stronger than you, what happens when eventually you become just as strong?
Yeah, it's easy to get the strength later on. Like not that strength is easy in an effort sense, but there's no reason you can't get strong. And I tend to think that once you have good technique, you have an ability to actually become strong in things that matter more. And you backfill. You backfill from the things that matter more to the things that matter less. So we're playing a good picture here for technique. It sounds like it's valuable. But let's go on the other side of the camp for a while. Again, look at people like Richard Lupkes. Richard Lupkes went all the way to the top of the sport, and he never trained on the table.
No, and
Never.
He said it multiple times. His only arm wrestling was competitions and occasionally after a tournament.
So
Did nothing else.
It can be done, can't it? That you just are all in the strength camp. And not that Richard had bad technique, but he didn't have advanced technique.
No, it was simple, very, very simple movements. You could see he was very explosive, which helped. But it was simple press, just get my shoulder behind. It was simple top roll, just post and go sideways and bend my wrist. It was nothing spectacular. But then you have the other side, don't you? You have John Brzenk, who in his years of absolute dominance didn't gym.
Yeah, he just table time, didn't he?
Just table time.
But John's strong as well. John's super strong in the things that mattered most, and he got that from training on the table.
Yeah, he still had to get strong, phenomenally strong.
He did. Look, it's interesting. If I reflect on my journey through the sport, and I've been pulling for a decade, years 1 through to 4, I was so heavily in the technique matters more than strength camp because I was one of those guys who could, like, without doubt, feel that I was beating people that were stronger than me.
Yep.
Consistently. It was so visible even to my opponents that I was smaller than them, and yet I was still getting victories here in Australia. And that was through the novice ranks.
Yep.
Through the novice ranks, technique was like triple the value of strength in my eyes. When I got to my first ever international match, I faced Justin Bishop. I technically executed that match exactly how I wanted to. I even took control of the wrist. My pronation was good. And then he buried me with side pressure. And I went, oh. I made no technical mistakes. And I got buried. And I thought, wow, okay, strength issue, clearly. Because I don't think I could have done anything better technically.
Yep.
I defended perfectly. I didn't over-pronate. I didn't go sideways too much early. I had control of the wrist, and I still could stop his side pressure and shoulder. So strength. Then I went through a phase of, okay, let's just get strong. Coach Ray beats me. And it's like I'd gone all in on strength on what I thought was valuable at the time. And it reminded me of, no, better execution is really important. And now then sort of post-Coach Ray, the awareness of that technique was there, and now I'm in a big strength phase yet again. But you know what I've experienced is the closer you get to the top of professional ranks of arm wrestling, the narrower the corridor feels on both regards. Everyone's strong. Everyone you touch hands with is like, you feel them and you're like, oh man, this dude's strong. And also you feel, oh, dude, this dude knows what he's doing. He's aware of everything I've tried. It's very rare to feel someone that you're like, oh, he doesn't realize I've got something. It's very rare. So the corridor is narrow, and it becomes less clear to me which one is more valuable, to be honest.
Got a little bit of a proposal of thought, and similar to where we see in terms of hook versus top roll arm wrestling, the fact that we see different styles at different weight categories. I almost feel as though the heavier you get, the higher the importance somewhat leans towards strength. The bigger you are, the heavier you get, the more strength becomes more important than technique in certain areas. And the lighter you are, the more technique will help you relative to strength. Now, of course, you still need both in any scenario. But if you look at those people who were just gym goers, who did well, like Richard Lupke's, I struggle to think of a lightweight
who just relied on strength. That's a good point. There is no 80-kilo world champion with bad or basic technique.
They're all technical geniuses. They're all phenomenal.
So does that just mean that heavyweights suck?
I mean,
or
we've said that a couple of times. Or is it
that heavyweight? Like, if it's funny because heavyweights do suck compared to lightweights when you're scoring the points on technical movements and diversity and range and ability to change directions and all. They do. They suck. I'll say it. They suck. But they're humans, and what they've done is they've lent into what is achieving success. And as you said, more strength is the bigger reward in the heavyweight.
And the technical versatility that most of those lightweights have, and the angles they hit and directions they move, you step in supers, that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So there's no place for that same type of technicality.
They're just revving the engine on back pressure and side pressure at the top and saying, what are you going to do about it? It doesn't matter that you curled your wrist around it. Like, good one.
Yeah, there's not to say that there aren't technical heavyweights. Emmys, if you look at all the way up, has been tremendously technical.
Even Levan.
Yeah.
Levan was a 95-kilo guy in the beginning and moved very, very well.
And then you see almost anybody versus Jerry Caderet. It seems to just be, I'm going to rev my engine and we're going to see who's stronger.
Yeah. So you brought up an interesting point in respect to the heavyweights. I've noticed that the data on heavyweights in respect to what strength matters most even is that back pressure to me seems to be the determining factor on who wins most matches. He with the highest back pressure shall taketh thy match.
Pretty much.
Yeah, you can almost reduce the heavyweight division to that. Like I said, in the lightweight division, wrist flexion seems to have more value. And I think that's just anatomically within the people that the frame size of lightweights, it's not possible to have enough back pressure to surpass the human potential of wrist flexion.
No.
But in the super heavyweight division, it is possible to surpass that. Back pressure has a greater ceiling to it. So I think that back pressure and human potential is a factor that comes in at around the 100 kilo mark. I tend to think above 100 kilos, strength is king. Below 100 kilos, execution still may be in front.
I'd potentially move that to around 115. But yeah, I agree with you in principle. I think you get a really nice balance point between 105 and 115. That's where you see people like Prudnik, you see people like Sandris, you see people like Jordan Sonov, you see people like Ongabayev at around 105. I think that 100 to 115 kilogram region is a really good balance point between the two, where strength and technique has have similar effects. And you see this with Devin Larratt, even king of the 115 kilo class. King of the 115 kilo class steps up to the super heavyweight class and just didn't have the frame, didn't have the muscle on the frame and the strength to support that technique. The technique wasn't able to get him as far. So it's you're looking at 105, 115 kilos. It's probably equal parts strength, technique. Maybe as you get slightly lower down.
What's your journey been? Because you're not a light guy.
I'm not a light guy.
For everyone at home, how heavy are you?
I'm yesterday I was 107.
107 kilos. So you're a pretty heavy dude. So you're in the weight category of where strength matters more.
But
you've historically been weak and you've focused on technique. So what's your journey been so far? On what mattered more to you? What felt more successful?
I think techniques come more to me easier, and it's meant I've been able to derail people a lot stronger than myself. We have my first or second super match in the Super Series Gold Coast, the one with the arm break.
Yeah, he was a bigger, stronger guy than you.
He was bigger, stronger, and it was scary in the setup, but it was quite a comfortable and dominant match because of technique and because of speed and whatnot. But whenever I come back from a comp, the biggest takeaway I have, I make technical errors. I know to shore them up, but the biggest takeaway I have is I'm not strong enough.
Where do you feel you're not strong enough? What's the most common bit of data that you come back with?
Back pressure.
Back pressure.
I need more back pressure. It's just what we were saying in terms of those heavier weight classes.
Well, there you go. Well, there it is. So, look, the ultimate conclusion is they both matter. And they're going to matter in varying degrees depending on A, your genetics, B, your weight category, and your natural affinity towards
one or the other. It's
a winding path to the top, isn't it? You will be in seasons of both. So I don't think you'll ever be able to convince anyone, and even yourself, that one truly matters more, because you will. Like I said, I've been through seasons where I thought technique was it, and then I thought strength was it, and then I thought, no, I need some more execution. I never want to be the dude not leading the dance in the technical sense. I want my opponent chasing me. I think there is a very significant advantage to being the guy leading the dance. Being the guy not leading the dance sounds horrible. To me, it means you've got to be stronger, like significantly stronger.
Yep.
There can be we touched on it before about, can you be balanced technically? I think what that looks like in reality is when two people dance two different dances and they refuse to get involved in each other's dance. That's as best as I can see as parody. Because if I offer you a dance and you take that dance with me, you're saying you're stronger than me. But if I offer you a dance and you're like, no, I'm going to do a different dance, you want to come over here, then you're saying, I'm going to do this technically.
Well, I think maybe a good example, Devin versus Gennady, two very technical people, two people playing a similar dance in terms of the shoulder line, and you saw the dividends. Now Gennady was stronger and had more security through his entire chain. So maybe that's the difference, but that's probably a good example of two people somewhat playing off each other. It was back and forward as to who looked like they were in control or were leading the dance. Devin, for the most part, looked like he was, but Gennady, who was still technically in tune and responding well, managed to bring the match back onto his side.
Well, he ultimately knew that in the dance that he was orchestrating, that there was a reserve of strength down the bottom that Devin wasn't able to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's what got him the victory. So self-awareness about where your strength allocations lie within your technical options and also in respect to how that balances with your opponent, because this is a human against a human. It's not a human against an object. So we don't get to just lift the barbell, which is the same for every person that steps up to it. There's no two arm wrestlers that feel the same.
And that's what makes it so exciting. Personally, This is why I like the sport. There's so many variables, there's so much nuance, and it all completely changes with whatever opponent's in front of you.
The old Bruce Lee sort of factor.
Yeah.
Be like water and just.
But where Jim goes, so be like a tsunami.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would have liked to have seen Bruce Lee in arm wrestling. I think he would have been a great arm wrestler, very technical.
I think he would have been very similar to Ongabayev, but at a lighter weight would quite possibly.
He would have been a batter. He would have been an absolute batter. He would have been a technical wizard, though. He wouldn't have been just a hook puller. He would have been. He'd be a hook puller in the microsecond off the start, and then as you go to change, he'd bust your wrist back, and then he'd flop press you between the gap where you would look in the transition, and you'd
watching old videos of John Prasenk, he like that, but somehow even faster.
Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gents, let us know what you think about it. Technique, strength, it'll be a debate that is going to rage, I think, for eternity in the sport. As new people get involved, they'll experience it all. But anyway, they both matter. They're both pretty damn important. Just get better at both. Just get better at both. All right, guys.